Chapter 341, Leaping Out of the Water. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Watching the abyss ancient sword get closer and closer, Di Yi's eyes grew colder. His pupils contracted. They were as small as pinpricks. Two flashes of purple lightning shot towards the abyss ancient sword from his pupils. Bam! Two forces bumped against each other. The two men separated simultaneously. Zhang Yuochen only took 2 steps back before he regained his footing. Holding the abyss ancient sword, he easily cut off the chaotic power of genuine Qi. He stood in the water with green lightning light haze emitting from all his pores like green rays of sunlight. He looked like a green lotus rooted in the bottom of the water, revealing an otherworldly temperament. In contrast, Di Yi took 15 steps back, leaving 15 holes in the bottom of the water. His clothes which had been stabbed by the sword Qi had 3 holes. It seemed that he was in a tight corner. Obviously, Zhang Yuochen had gained the upper hand. Zhang Yuochen, let us help you. 6 people rushed towards Zhang Yuochen and stood behind him. They were Huang Yanjun, Si Xingkong, Shang Kiki, Juan Mook Singerling, Shen Xie and Ziqian. Their momentum fused with Zhang Yuochen's, giving Di Yi considerable pressure. Zhang Yuochen, do you dare to fight with me on your own until we have a winner? Di Yi asked coolly. He stood on the other side majestically. Shang Kiki laughed. We don't need to fight fair when dealing with a person like you. Let's do it together and kill this hubristic man. Zhang Yuochen shook his head. This is a fight between Di Yi and me. You guys stay out of this. Zhang Yuochen. Huang Yanjun said. Zhang Yuochen said, no more words. All of you must stand down. Zhang Yuochen's request to fight with Di Yi alone was not to be arrogant. It was to protect the others. Although Huang Yanjun and Si Xingkong were top masters and could help him a lot, there was still a huge gap between them and Di Yi. They could be killed any time if they let their guard down. Zhang Yuochen did not want to risk their lives to kill Di Yi. Good. Let's fight outside. Zhang Yuochen. Di Yi was still worried that Zhang Yuochen and his friends would besiege him. He had confidence he could kill all of them except Zhang Yuochen, but he might get hurt in the fight. So he could only go all out if they left the Dragon Palace. Snick, snick. Di Yi and Zhang Yuochen rushed out of the Dragon Palace. They both unleashed their bodily movements and rushed to the surface of the dead reach. A few moments later, there were 2 loud sounds and water splashed to the sky. Zhang Yuochen and Di Yi rose out of the water almost at the same time. They stood on the black surface of the water. It seemed like they were standing on the ground. Many warriors could be seen off in the distance. Meanwhile, there were several giant warships coming towards them at high speed. In the month Zhang Yuochen and his friends were in the Dragon Palace, it had caused a sensation throughout the martial world of Omen Ridge. Every force had come to the Death Reach, hoping to take a share of the spoils. There was an ancient white warship off in the distance. It had a battle flag on its top with the letter M. It was the School of the Martial Market's Rainbow Warship. On the warship, dozens of silver-gowned elders rushed from the cabin to the deck. With powerful charisma, each one of them had the cultivation of the heaven realm. They were watching Zhang Yuochen and Di Yi's battle from a distance. I recognize Zhang Yuochen, but who is the man opposite? A middle-aged silver-gowned elder asked in amazement. Soon afterwards, 2 powerful middle-aged men came out from the cabin. They stood side by side. All the silver-gowned elders saluted them. They were Lei Jing, the hall master of the silver-gowned elders hall, and Chen Ying, the palace master of the School of the Martial Market. Seeing Zhang Yuochen come out of the water, Lei Jing let out a long sigh of relief. For the past month, Lei Jing had been worried that Zhang Yuochen would meet Di Yi in the Dragon Palace and be killed by him. Lei Jing was relieved to see Zhang Yuochen come out of the Dragon Palace alive. Chen Ying was a gentleman who looked to be in his 40s. His hair was combed back neatly, and his mustache perfectly shaved. He had a prominent nose and deep-set eyes. It was easy to imagine him as a womanizer in his early days. He was still charming after all these years. This gentleman was Chen Xie's father, the palace master of the School of the Martial Market. Chen Ying narrowed his eyes. These 2 young men are amazing to have such vigor considering they just broke into the heaven realm. Lei, Zhang Yuochen's gift is much better than you mentioned. Lei Jing laughed. Of course, after all he is my disciple. Chen Ying despised him. Don't toot your own horn. Zhang Yuochen is strong enough to fight against the saintly being warriors now. How could you train such a talent? He is my disciple after all, not yours. That's enough. Lei Jing smirked. Chen Ying shook his head and did not bother to argue with Lei Jing. Zhang Yuochen was Huang Yanqian's fiancé and Huang Yanqian was his niece, which meant Zhang Yuochen belonged to the Chens. They were relatives. Yanqian does have better taste than Xia. I'm surprised she was able to see Zhang Yuochen's talent earlier. Chen Ying smiled. In addition to the masters from the School of the Martial Market, masters from Yantai Suzerain, Tai King Palace, Godblood School and other top suzerains of the Omen Ridge were all gathering at the Death Reach. They were also driving warships and watching the battle. Our young master has come out. 7 people jumped out and flew towards Di Yi. They landed behind him and stood in a line. They were the 7 kills emissaries of the Black Market Excellence Hall. There were 4 males and 3 females. They were all top masters. It seemed that they were all between the ages of 20 to 30 at first sight. Of course, the higher a master's cultivation, the more youthful he or she would appear. It was difficult to tell someone's real age from their appearance. Zhang Yuochen was not scared at all even when the 7 kills emissaries showed up. Standing straight, he held his Abyss Ancient Sword and stared coolly at Di Yi. Let's begin. Seeing the 7 kills emissaries arrive, Di Yi finally let out a long breath and relaxed a little bit. He smiled. Zhang Yuochen, you haven't seen Jiang Tangai since the beginning. Don't you think it's strange? What do you mean? Zhang Yuochen asked. You can carefully and gently think about what I mean. Zhang Yuochen suddenly realized that it was not going well. That was right. He hadn't seen Jiang Tangai since before he went into the Dragon Tomb. Where had Yi sent him? Although his heart state was affected, Zhang Yuochen appeared calm as before. He knew that Di Yi was trying to disturb him in the battle. He had done this last time when he fought against Buqian Fan. First, Di Yi had disturbed his heart state. Then he defeated Buqian Fan in 3 movements with his sword. He wanted to defeat Zhang Yuochen in the same way. Zhang Yuochen took a deep breath. His flurried mind calmed down. He could not let himself be influenced by Di Yi. Otherwise, he might be killed in this fight. Zhang Yuochen held the hilt with both hands and activated all 66 inscriptions in the Abyss Ancient Sword. Great sword chi gathered together in the air, covering an area of more than 333 square meters. Di Yi smiled. Jiang Tangai had been right. Zhang Yuochen's weakness was his concern for others, not himself. Zhang Yuochen looked very calm. But Di Yi believed that his words had influenced his heart state to some degree. Now, all he had to do was attack and defeat him. There's no need for the young master to fight when dealing with Zhang Yuochen. I will kill him for you. The Red Wish emissary laughed charmingly. Her sexy body flew up and turned into an illusory image. She attacked Zhang Yuochen before Di Yi. Seeing the Red Wish emissary's action, Di Yi frowned slightly. He had planned to defeat or kill Zhang Yuochen with the most powerful martial art at the highest speed while Zhang Yuochen was flustered and vulnerable. However, the Red Wish emissary's sudden attack provided him a cushion period. It would be harder to defeat Zhang Yuochen once he calmed down, so the Red Wish emissary had chosen an odd time to attack. Could she be helping him intentionally? Di Yi was an oversensitive man. He threw doubt upon the Red Wish emissary. However, after contemplating for a while, he shook his head. She doesn't know that Zhang Yuochen has the power to contend against me. In that case, her action could benefit me. At least this way I can see some of Zhang Yuochen's martial techniques and trump card. Di Yi no longer suspected the Red Wish emissary. Instead, he watched their battle carefully, ready to find flaws in Zhang Yuochen's martial arts. Zhang Yuochen, last time you escaped with others' help. But this time you won't be so lucky. Dressed in crimson clothes made of tulle, the Red Wish emissary had an ample chest and a plump behind. She was hot as hell. She made the movement of beauty and rushed to Zhang Yuochen at high speed. She looked like a succubus dancing on the water. This woman was indeed stunning. She did not even need to fight in person. All she had to do was leering at others, and there would be countless men willing to kill for her. Scarlet Dreamland. Then she used sorcery. Zhang Yuochen felt the scenery around him change. It seemed that he had come to a luxurious palace and was surrounded by beautiful women with white skin and long legs. Even the air was filled with the faint fragrance. A startlingly beautiful girl in pink lingerie walked gently to Zhang Yuochen. Other beauties were all cast in the shade compared to her. The girl looked very similar to the Red Wish emissary. She lifted her perfect face and leered at Zhang Yuochen. Her hands moved gently to her back and untied the little red strings. Then the pink panties she wore slid down to her shanks, showing her perfect body. Zhang Yuochen stared at the gorgeous woman coolly. Red Wish emissary, you should know that I am not scared of your sorcery. Ha ha. Is that so? I understand. She smiled flirtatiously. Suddenly, she attacked towards Zhang Yuochen's glabella with her finger sword.